Welcome to Yeshiva Daf. We're holding in Zevachim Daf Samach. Yesterday we went down until we got to the bottom. Maybe we'll just go a few lines back just to finish that sugya again. Into Omer Rova. We'll be in the middle of the Omer Rova. Rova, in the middle of the page, just to get back to this. If you have more in the Amud, because the Omer Rava, that's what we spoke. We learned in the Daf. Rabbi Yehuda says that the floor is good enough to be a mizbech, and that's why Shleim Hamelech was mekadosh the floor. Is the whole cheshbon of the Gemara that we mekadosh the floor because there's not enough room in the mizbech, so you need to put room in the floor. So the floor can be used as a mizbech. It says Rava that's only the limbs, not the blood. The blood you have to do zrika on the mizbech cannot be done on the floor. The Tanya Rabbi Yehuda, how do you know that? Because look at Pesach. At Pesach it says that we learned it earlier that Rabbi Yehuda said the end of the day in Pesach they used to take one kli vessel full of blood from the floor, the shayvchal get on mizbech, throw on the mizbech. Because maybe one of the korbanos Pesach, the blood flowed on the floor. Into Zevach Shira. So Yehuda says we have a way to make all the blood in Beis Hamikdash kosher if it fell. Because maybe there was probably millions of korbanos. Maybe one of them is spilled on the floor. And it's not kosher. So what do? There's blood on the floor. You take the blood from the floor, throw it on the mizbech, and you machshir everything. That's what he said. We learned it earlier. Said the Gemara, if he holds the floor of the Azor's Kadosh, what's the problem? Who cares it's on the floor? The floor is also mizbech. So what do you see from here? The floor is not good enough for the blood. It's good enough for the limbs, but not for the blood. Well, no. Maybe he holds the floor as Kadosh. But I need to come from the Adam and not spill on its own. So maybe the blood on the floor is good, but here it didn't come from Adam. Nobody threw it on the floor, it just fell on the floor. So when can so just pick it up and spill it back to the same place. Why have to put it in his back? So it's more of a deal we shouldn't have been a mitzvah in a muvchar. Something more extra because really the mitzvah in a muvchar you do on his back. If you can, there's not enough room, you do on the floor. But you try to avoid doing it on the floor, and that's what Rita says, pick it up because it was not spilled. Not thrown, and don't do it on the floor, do it on the mizbech, even though you could do it on the floor if you want to, but mitzvah ben hamuvcha to do it on the mizbech. So the Gemara says not a raya from here, the blood is different. Continues the Gemara. Going back to the sugya, we said the mizbech shenivgam, mizbech is broken. What happens with it? Omar bilazim mizbech shenivgam ein oichlim beginoi shiori mincha. So the kriyanim cannot eat the shiraim of the mincha, leftover mincha. Or what? For it. On behalf of it. They can't eat shir mincha. So even though the mincha, how does the mincha work? You do kmitza, you pick up the flour from the mincha, you put it in the kmitza, three middle fingers, take that, put it in the mizbech, and the rest is eaten by the kohanim. Now he went and put it on the mizbech, and then the mizbech got broken. So you think, okay, so who cares? Let the kohanim eat it. You can't do it once the mizbech got broken, as the Shita brings over here, even if the mizbech was rebuilt later. It says that they eat the matzah, which is referring here to the mincha, by the mizbech. Did you eat it in the mizbech? As Rashi points out, you can eat it all over the azara. Talk about when the mizbech is shalom, not when it's broken. So we're very, very good. Ashkod Shior Mincha. So Mincha we are clearly in the pasuk. Kodesh Kadosh, we don't know any Kodesh Kadosh you can't eat if this back is broken. Kodesh Kadosh. Because the pasuk Dira Mincha says Kodesh Kadosh. Kodesh Kalim Minayin. How do you know Kodesh, which are Kodesh Kalim, that if this back is broken you can't eat? Omar Baya is a bit Joshua de Abiyasi. You don't remember, he said, Tana Abiyasi Yoimer, Gimel Devarim, Mishum, when the Savach will base Gimel Skein. Basically, you learn three things there in Gimel Skein. What do you learn? One of them is the following. Could it be, and if you remember this was a Gemara in Maseches Makis. Can I bring my Sesheni L'Ushalayim? can I bring the Ma'aseh Sheni? Meaning was no Beis Hamikdash. Why do you need Beis Hamikdash? Ma'aseh Sheni doesn't come to Beis Hamikdash. Ma'aseh Sheni comes to Yerushalayim. So do I bring the Ma'aseh Sheni to Yerushalayim today? Says the Gemara, Fedinu. I make except let me learn on my own. We know that Bechor needs to come to Yerushalayim. U'Ma'aseh To'un Avos Makoim, Ma'aseh has to come to Yerushalayim. Ma Bechor Einu B'lifnei Abayis. Bechor, the Gemara understands now, assuming that you can't bring it if there's no Mizbeach. Have Ma'aseh Einu B'lifnei Abayis. Can't bring it without a Beis Hamikdash. Saying Bechor Sheken To'un Matan Domin V'Yimul L'Gavei Mizbeach. Bechor, of course you can't bring it if there's no Beis Hamikdash, because I need to do the blood and the Imur on Mizbeach. Saying what Bikurim Yochich. You want to be right for Bikurim? Bikurim, you don't have to put anything on Mizbeach. Says Gemara, Bikurim you can do it in Manach. Yeah, Bikurim doesn't have to do it in the Mizbeach, but you do have to place the Bikurim, or the first fruits, next to the Mizbeach. So that's what you're missing. Tomu Loimar, V'Aveis Shomo, Oiloi Seichem, V'Zivchechem, and it says over here, and it says Masur Seichem, and it says B'Choros. Makish Basal B'Chor. B'Chor no Elif Nabais. B'Chor is only when you have Beis Hamikdash. Am Ma'aser Elif Nabais can do it only in the time of Beis Hamikdash. So the Gemara, V'Nehada Din of V'Nesim Matzah. We're trying to learn Ma'aser Sheni from B'Chor, so you can't learn. So we tried to learn then from Bikurim, we can't learn. So learn from both. Matzah. Says the Gemara, we should equal Mifach Matzah. Shavat Shaboyim Shekanesh V'En Tzabizbech. So I can't learn from there because they both have Tzabizbech, which means they both need something in the Mizbech. The B'chor needs to put the blood in the Mizbech. The Bikurim needs to put it next to the Mizbech. So they need Mizbech. So if I don't have, that's why if I don't have Mizbech, it doesn't work. But by my side, I don't need Mizbech. Because, no, so what I would say, I would not think that Tzah Shor is Mizbech, because it's not the same Mizbech. By Bechor in the Mizbech is you put the blood in the Mizbech. By the Bikur in the Mizbech is to put next to the Mizbech. So that when it was, it's not, I can't compare the two, it's not the same thing, it's two different actions of Mizbech. So it's more nice, it's all Mizbech. Says the Gemara, okay, so that's what it says over here. Says the Gemara, Ma'ikasov. What does he hold? Now here we have two Gersos, it's really the same discussion we had in Meseches Makis, Machlokes Rashi Tosis. The Gersos that we have, we're going to read is the Gersos of Rashi. And then we'll see Tosis says differently. But the Gemara says like this, Ma'ikasov. If they hold that is Kadosh, the Kedusha Beis Hamikdash remains. I feel the Bechor down. So it's the Bechor. Well, what do you mean I feel the Bechor? Right? What do I want Bechor? Meaning, why can't I bring a Bechor right now? Because you could do a Krava without Beis Hamikdash. Rashi brings the Gemara in Megillah. It says the Gemara, the Mishnah, one who holds that Kedusha Rishon and Kitchel Shaitzel. The Kitchelos Lavo holds Bakrim Al Bishen Bais. I can do Korban right now. Toys points out over here, very important, interesting point on Toys over here. There's a very, very long Toys. You see, it goes in the base from the top until Zevachim from down from the very long Toys. But if you say that many of it is brought in Makis. But Toys points out over here, we just learned the daf ago that Domim, that was the whole, how do we start the Sugya of Domim? So we said that if you don't have a Mizbech, you can't do the Korbanos. You can do other stuff. You can do Ketayris without Mizbech. You can do Ivar without Mizbech. But Domim, you have to have Mizbech. So says Tais, what do you mean you can do it even without Beis Hamikdash? Says Tais says, I'm talking about doing it with a Mizbech. You have to build a Mizbech. According to the Gemara Le'el, in order to do the blood, you have to build a Mizbech. I'm talking about without Beis Hamikdash. The Mizbech has to be built. Okay, good question. Today, in the shiur I gave in the morning, someone showed me they went to one of these yeshuvim, and there they have a full mizbeach built. It says that the big sign, practice mizbeach for the kohanim, but it was a full dimension mizbeach.
Anybody can do mizbeach.
I mean, do you need a sahedri to do it? I don't know. But what Toy speaks about is the gabe. Conceptually, if you were able to build a mizbeach, you could do the korbanos. So the more says, so what are you saying? You're saying, I don't understand. You're saying, well, Bechor can't come today, so Ma'aser can't come today. Why Bechor can't come today? Because you shouldn't get Shil Shais, get Shil Silovai. Elamai, you want to tell me you hold the Kedusha, it's not good, Lo Silovai. So the Mavika saw like get Shil Silovai, if you hold doesn't work Silovai, Afilu Bechor, Nami Tiboi. So Bchor asked the question, which question? So Rashi explains, by Bchor itself, there's two parts of the Bchor. One part is you have to put the blood in the Mizbech. Okay? Here, if you have no Mizbech, you have no blood. You have no Beis Hamikdash. But let's say you did the blood before Beis Hamikdash was Nechov. And then Beis Hamikdash was Nechov. Can I eat the meat? The same question about Meiser. We ask it like this. The Meiser Sheni, can I bring it to Yerushalayim to eat it? Why? I don't need the Mizbech. So he said, I'll bring a Rav and Bechor. Why Bechor so pashut? The blood? Okay, so let's assume I avoided the blood. Let's say the blood happened before Beis Hamikdash was Nechov. Can I take the meat? Well, why are you saying, oh, Bechor, I know for sure you can't. And Meiser, I'm not sure. Why? That's what Rashi learns. Toy disagrees. Toy says she kubetz to be a gruch gdoilo, and they have a different girsa. The girsa they say is, so he says, I feel ma'aser nami, meaning if you hold that there's no kedusha, so what's the point to bring the ma'aser to Yerushalayim? There's no kedusha. If you hold there is kedusha, I can do b'chor today. If there's no kedusha, so why should I bring the ma'aser to Yerushalayim? Why? What's the point of bringing the Yerushalayim? So it says here today is the biggest service in this place. So he says, what does Meiser? Where does Meiser come from? Where does Meiser come from? Meiser Sheni. From which location? Which location does Meiser Sheni come from? Eretz Yisrael. Why don't we bring it Meiser Sheni from Chutz La'aretz? Because there's no kedusha. So if you tell me there's no Kedusha Yerushalayim, why should I have Kedusha Meiser Sheni? You're saying, Kedusha Yerushalayim, no look, there's no Yerushalayim. So I don't have to be Meiser Sheni Yerushalayim, so why do you have Meiser Sheni at all? So this says, the Yesod over here, the Gemara understands that the Kedusha of Eretz Yisrael always remains. The Kedusha of Beis Hamikdash is debatable, which is exactly opposite of what the Rambam says. So the Taisus learns, the our sugi learns, there's a bit something that I don't know. Maybe it's Kodesh, it's not Kodesh, I don't know. But Yisrael always stays the Kedusha. The Rambam says the opposite. The Rambam Halacha brings.
Does Rashi also say, is that when it said Rashi, is Rashi also saying that there's Kedusha there? Isn't the whole Shaila more according to Rashi, but there's Kedusha's bias?
Bias, but Yisrael you'll have.
Right, so
Rashi
agrees with Taisus.
Yeah, also the Rambam will have to explain that in our sugi. But the Rambam learns from a different sugya. The sugya of Kedusha Shei Kedusha Sai Kedusha Silavoi, he learns that we pass that Beis Hamikdash the Kedusha remains, and that's the famous Rambam. The Rambam says, "And Eretz Yisrael the Kedusha does not remain." Why does it remain? Meaning it could be batel, and that's why the Kedusha of Oilei Mitzrayim is batel. So it says that Rambam, Lamani Yoimer, famous Rambam, Lamani Yoimer Shekdusha Sabai Seina Betelo, Kedusha Zaaretz Betelo, because Kedusha Sabai is Iprei Shechino. The Shechino Eino Zozo, the Gailosho, it doesn't move from place to that place. That's why it always stays. Shen Kedusha Eretz Yisrael has to do with kibush, with conquering. Now you conquered out, you lost the Kedusha. So it's the opposite of what we see in the way this our sugi is handling it. Even though it's not a real steer, because now we're talking about kibush Ezra, okay, kibush Mitzrayim, so maybe it'll be different.
So how does the Rambam learn the Gemara?
So I'm saying, the Rambam in our Gemara argues, if you're pasking, the Kedusha Shei Kedusha Shai Kedusha Azilavoi, so Kedusha of the Beis Hamikdash remains. What about Kedusha Eretz Yisrael? To pay Kedusha. The Kedusha of Beis Hamikdash, of Kedusha's Rishayna like Kedusha Azilavoi, Kedusha Shina can't Kedusha Azilavoi. Kedusha's Ezra. So what the Rambam gives it that rule is regarding, it's not exact opposite. It's the one nekuda. Why Kedusha? Why Oilei Mitzrayim like Kodesh Azilavoi? Why the Kedusha of Oilei Mitzrayim didn't remain? Kedusha's Oilei Bavel didn't remain. You know, according to the Rambam. Okay. Says the Gemara, so Gemara says, I don't say, what do you hold? There's a Kedusha, no Kedusha. No, there's no Kedusha. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about that there was this, according to Rashi, when the Gemara was asking the question, that's the answer. So that's one of the reasons why this is language of Rashi. But according to Rashi, the question was, maybe what about the type in a case of a b'chor, the blood was thrown, but not the guf? So the Gemara, that's the case. Throw the blood, not the guf. Not the, you need the bossa. I said guf, not the bossa. So how do I know that you can't eat the meat? According to Rashi, that was the question of the Gemara. Okay, to be done. The way I know you don't eat the meat because there's a hekesh. What's the hekesh? It says dam and basar the same pasuk, and we know the blood you need the mizbech, so the basar you also need the mizbech. Now Meiser Sheni learns by B'chor for another hekesh, the hekesh that says B'chor Meiser. So I learned the meat from the blood, the hekesh. Now I have another pasuk that teaches you a hekesh from Meiser to B'chor. Tell you also Meiser can't be as if you don't have Beis Hamikdash. So I asked the Gemara the obvious question. Does it matter? As we saw before, you can't do hekesh from hekesh. So I said the Gemara, Meiser dogun chulinu. Meiser is not kodesh, it's chuli. So that's why what? You're learning to Meiser. So the lamed is chuli. Says the Gemara, but the lamed is learning. You go based on the one who's learning.
We're talking about Meiser dog, or we're talking about Meiser Shane?
Meiser Shane must do the same thing. Same thing. Hanich mandoma so lamed is learning. El mandoma so lamed is learning on ma'ikalamema. Now this is Rashi referred to earlier. When we spoke about Hekesh ben Hekesh, so the Gemara brought there a discussion. Wanted to bring a raya when we learned Shlomim from Toida, Shlomim Toida, that learned from Meiser. I think that's what it was, right? We learned Shlomim from Toida, we learned from Meiser. So the Gemara there brought a machlekes. And Rashi said that a machlekes depends on what? The machlekes depends on if you dover a lomet, if you go based on the lomet or based on the melamed. That's how you do it. So, what was it? Yeah, if you had Toida coming from the Meiser, yeah, it was coming from Meiser. So the Gemara there said it was a question. Machlekes Rapop and Mazutro, and Mazutro said Meiser dover chuli b'almo. Meiser was the melamed. Says the Gemara, he says, I don't care, as long as I don't need you have to have both kodesh. Said Rashi over there, you should know that there is, if you open it, daf nun mudalef. The Gemara brought over there, the Gemara said, lamed kodesh, melamed kodesh. Only if they both the kodesh. So said Rashi on that, Rashi says, because Mazuda saw Basa melamed as linon. In other words, what's the machlekes between Mapop and Mazuda dav samech? Do you go based on the teacher or based on the Talmud? That's what we say usually. Where's usually? Says the in the parentheses, Samach al base. Our daf. Meaning, where do we know that? Here's what the Gemara points it out. There's two different opinions. Do I go based on the teacher, on the one who's teaching you, or based on what is being taught? So the Gemara there, brother sheet, they go based on it depends if the teacher is chuli or kodesh. If the teacher is chuli, I don't care if you learn the kodesh. And now the Gemara is telling us the opposite. You're going based on the one who's learning. I'm learning to Meiser. Meiser is chuli. So okay, that's if you go based on the lamed, on the thing that's taught. But if you go based on the melamed, you want to learn from B'chor is kodesh. Says the Gemara, Dam basar chad b'ilsehi. Dam and basar are considered to be one thing. Meaning, what does it mean dam basar chad b'ilsehi? It's not considered to be a hekesh. The dam and the basar, I don't look at it as a hekesh. The dam is a hekesh to basar. It's one big thing. So it's not considered to be two different things. It's considered to be one animal with dam and basar. And Yimei, it's not a din of a hekesh. It's not a din of a hekesh. So Yimei, that's why I learn from each other, and they can teach you to Meiser. It's not considered to be hekesh from hekesh. It's hekesh from one thing. That's something more says. And Yimei says the more. That's why I know that you can't bring Meiser today. And then the Gemara is going to go on. The next sugi goes into right away, boom, right to the Zevachim of basics. The Zevachim is very, very short. Goes into the bring now another svar. To say the Gemara, we'll stop over here, and Be'ez Hashem will continue tomorrow night. A good night.